I decided to put some graphs up also here for the foreign press. And here you can see Bauer Group, which was a large holding company here in Iceland. And they actually got ownership stake into Glitnir Banki. And here you can see how their borrowing evolved with Glitnir Banki. And it is of no surprise when you're looking at that figure that actually the ownership of the bank changed and the governance of the bank changed mid-year 2007. Fond Exista, on the other hand, was a big stakeholder in Kaupthing, owned 23% of Kaupthing. And the lending to Exista was extensive. Also lending that were secured with stocks of Exista. Björgólfur Thor Björgólfsson, who was a big owner of the Landsbanki, also had easy access to money at Landsbanki. This amounted to almost 30% of the bank's equity base. One of our main findings is that the equity of the banks, which, as I was explaining actually earlier in the Icelandic press conference, was often stated as being strong equity ratios, was actually quite weak. The bank risk exposure due to funding of own shares was excessive. Direct loans with collateral in own shares. Forward contracts on their own shares, which amount to just lending for own shares. The bank's capital ratios therefore did not reflect the real ability of the banks nor the financial system as a whole to withstand losses. The three banks themselves had financed a total of 300 billion Icelandic krona of their own share in mid-2008. We call this in the report weak equity. At the same time, the capital base of the banks was about 1,200 billion Icelandic krona, and hence the weak equity represented more than 25% of the bank's capital base in mid-year 2008. Within the capital base also are loans, subordinated loans, 33%. If cross-financing is figured in, that is, lending from one bank for the shares of another bank here within Iceland, this amounted to 400 billion Icelandic kronas, or nearly 70% of core capital. And core capital is the capital base when I deduct long-term subordinate loans. The Special Investigation Commission is of the opinion that the financing of own equity in the Icelandic banking system had in such large proportion been based on borrowing from the system itself that its stability was threatened. An overestimation of the equity in a bank increases its capacity to grow. The bank's capacity to deal with setbacks decreases at the same time. This increases the probability of a bankruptcy. The loss to depositors and other creditors will be greater than it would otherwise have been in a bankruptcy under these circumstances. If the bank in question is systematically important, as was the case with all the banks in Iceland, the cost to society will be significant, as history has shown. The Special Investigation Commission concludes that loans exclusively secured with collaterals in the institution's own shares should be subtracted from equity of the institution. The same should apply to shares formally registered as owned by third party and for own account of the representative financial institution. Foreign deposits grew a lot. Foreign deposits in Icelandic banks increased considerably from the end of 2006 when they were launched in October. It was inter alia the bank's response to the criticism at the beginning of that year of the one-sided financing of the banks through their foreign debt security markets. The foreign deposits of the three banks had become 8 times larger than the central bank's monetary reserve at the end of 2007. This, of course, affected the credibility of the financial system. From the end of the third quarter of 2006 until mid-year 2007, deposits in Landsbanki foreign branches in London and in the Netherlands increased by 9 billion euros, 3/4 of our GDP almost. The largest proportion of this growth was at the Landsbanki branch in UK, as you can see from the green things there. Lending growth was considerable in Landsbanki during this period, this 9-month period, or 5 billion euros. This included mostly, or the increase was the greatest in lending to holding companies and foreign parties. At the time also, net borrowing decreased in bond markets. So this was also replacing bond market financing. The decrease was approximately 1.5 billion euros. Towards the end, the last 12 months, it can be said that the outflow of wholesale deposits in the UK and Dutch branches actually outnumbered the increase in deposits at the same time, in retail deposits. One of the things that increased the risk and the cost of this collapse to Iceland was what we call debt repatriation. The largest Icelandic investment companies had, in addition to borrowing in Iceland, been doing business with foreign banks and borrowed from them as well. Several of these loans were secured by pledging the Icelandic banks' securities. As share prices fell, the quality of the collateral for the Icelandic companies declined. The foreign conducted margin calls repeatedly, or they closed credit lines completely. The reply of the 3 banks here was to take over the financing, so the loans to the foreign banks could be paid up. Thus, the Icelandic banks loaned out high amounts. At the same time, they were suffering from a considerable shortage of liquid assets. Our question is why? The performance of the banks was too tied up to the performance of these firms. So the only way out was to lend to them or fall with them. So they bet. They betted for life. Also, this is not put down in the ranking of what we think is the most probable, but this is also an issue. These investment companies had an abnormal easy access to loans in the banks in the capacity of their ownership and influences within them. These loans were largely made in order to finance the purchase of the shares in the banks themselves. To prevent sales of the shares, the banks overtook the financing in an effort to maintain the value of the shares. And this conclusion is in a connection to us looking at the market here for stock market here, which seems to have been manipulated in the last 12 months greatly. Also, the failure of a small investment firm in January, Gnúpur, had actually created a stir in international financial markets and prevented Glitnir from receiving financing in that month in the roadshow. So some of the reason was also just to prevent negative publicity that always reflected in their own credit ratings. Risks were increasing, and in light of the prevailing market conditions from the autumn from 2007, it was difficult for the banks to unwind the risks that had formed within the system. A large part of the problem that the banks tried to react to in the prelude to their collapse was due to risks that were already in place within the system when the liquidity crisis hit. The banks had taken risks with their operations when the going was better. And it should therefore be pointed out that risks are formed when they're taken, and not when stock prices and exchange rates start to fall. Increased loans to owners, the taking over of foreign financing, losses due to buying and selling of owned stocks, and other comparable behavior of the banks to the extent that is described in the report, can, however, hardly be considered legitimate reaction to such problems or in bearing with healthy and normal business practices. When the banks collapsed, there was an inevitable and significant reduction in the value of their assets. That's just nature of banking. When they collapse, their assets burn up. It is, however, the Commission's finding that the quality of the loan portfolios has started to erode at least 12 months before the collapse and continued to erode until the collapse, even though this was not reported in the bank's financial statements. The investigation by the Commission into the financing of the banks strongly suggests that the worth of the loans and related liabilities was exaggerated in the bank's financial statements for the year end 2007 and the semi-annual statement for 2008. The values of the assets of the three big banks were adjusted in November 2008. Before they were 12,000 billion Icelandic kroner. After the adjustment, they were 4,500 billion Icelandic kroner. A write-down of 7,000 billion, or about 60% of their assets. The write-down at the end of June 2008 was a total of 67 billion kroners, or 0.7% of the company's total assets at that time. Just for comparison, the GDP of Iceland in 2008 was approximately 1,400 billion, meaning that the write-down of the assets of the financial companies corresponded to 5 years of Iceland's GDP. As you will be able to read about in chapter 21 of the report, which has been translated, the Commission has concluded that in its work it has come across issues that can be considered mistakes or negligence according to the first paragraph of the Act of the Commission, relating to the work of 3 ministers at that time: the Prime Minister, Finance Minister, and the Minister of Commerce. Also relating to the work of 3 governors of the central bank at that time, and also in relation to the work of the manager of the Financial Supervisory Authority at that time. And that is our final conclusion. Thank you.
We will not be taking any questions in this session, so this is the end of our press meeting. Thank you very much.